This incredibly nondescript bike box contains the most dominant bicycle in all of bicycle competition. In the past decade, it's taken home more world championships, more World Cup wins, and podium finishes, and in the past year got 7 world championship medals alone. This bike is insane, and the craziest part is that most people that get this bike don't change a single thing on the bike. Even crazier than that, this bike costs less than $3,000. I'll give you a hint. If you've learned any of the skills that I teach on this channel, from lifting your front wheel to lifting your back wheel, applying pedal pressure, this bike would turn you into a superstar. It makes all of those skills really easy to do and allows you to progress at the fastest possible rate. Here we go. If you guessed trials bike, you were absolutely correct. This is the Kruker's Jealousy. This is the top of the line competition trials bike, but this isn't going to be an unboxing video. I told you that this bike would make you an absolute superhero at all the bike skills that we've learned so far on this channel. So what I want to do is give you the side-by-side comparison, what it looks like to ride these bikes on each obstacle. We already know that we can push this bike pretty far, but let's just see how far we can push this bike. Here's a fun fact, it's 5:45 in the morning right now. That's when I film most of the videos for this channel, so if I look a little rough on the bike, that might be why. Let's get warmed up with Scrappy. This is the smallest box in the warehouse. We know we can ride up and onto it, but I feel like there's a lot more style we could probably be throwing in. We'll start with the mountain bike, and then we'll try out the trials bike. Let's try a wheel swap on this bike. It's a pretty popular trials move where you go up on your front wheel and then you switch your front wheel for your back wheel. I don't know if I can do it on a 29er, but let's give it a shot. Not the smoothest. That will definitely look better on the trials bike. As we're riding today, I'm going to show you a few different things that make this bike special and different from every other bike that I own. Now, there are some obvious things like it doesn't have a seat, but there are some smaller elements that make it really special. For example, the rims here are completely ground up by a disc grinder to give it a really rough surface. So when you hear the brakes squeaking when I'm riding, it's actually the rim brakes interacting with that ground up surface. It makes it stop absolutely perfect on a dime. Isn't it interesting that I look more confident and comfortable on this bike than I do on the trials bike? There's a reason for that. We're sort of overlapping styles between the two bikes because we're working on the bike basics and fundamental skills that we need for balance and control. But this mountain bike, when we ride, we use both wheels about the same to conquer obstacles, to ride up them and to ride off of them. Whereas a competition trials bike, as you advance beyond the basics, really shines when you're just hopping on the back wheel. So we'll eventually get to that whole back wheel thing. But for now, let's test out both bikes and see how they ride up onto obstacles. This box right here is called Large Marge. It's a 2-foot tall box and it's about 2.5 feet wide. This was the original box that I built when I first got this warehouse. And I'm gonna give myself about a wheelbase here, about 1 pedal stroke to get up onto this 2-foot box. That actually went better than I thought. Let's see if we can do it with just pedal pressure instead of doing that wheelie up motion. So I'm just gonna try a half pedal. I don't know, I've never done this one before. That took some effort, but it worked. That's the highest I've ever gone on a 29er using just pedal pressure. Let's see what those two skills look like on this trials bike. And then after we do those, there's a few other ways that we can use to get our bike up onto this box. So first we'll start with the wheelie up. Next, we're going to use the pedal pressure skill to get up on this. So that worked out pretty well, but what happens if you turn the power all the way up on that wheelie pedal up? Let me show you. Now let's see what happens when we turn the power up on the pedal pressure skill. It's pretty fun to add a ton of power to a skill that you already have. That's sort of like how far you can push these skills. And you already have the basics of them, which is kind of exciting. But there are other skills that we've learned that also apply in different ways. So one of the things we do is we work on the wheelbase hop forward, where we have the inchworm and then we jump a little bit further. We can do a version of that called a lunge, which is gonna take advantage of the fact that I have a crazy long bike with no seat. So what I'm gonna do is put my front wheel up onto this box and balance just like that. And then I'm going to jump where my back wheel replaces my front wheel with one big movement. Since we're up here, we might as well discover all the different ways that we can drop down, starting with the wheelie drop. And of course, we can use pedal pressure to ride off this as well. When we talk about the pedal pressure drop technique, on a trials bike, it's slightly different. The thing that we do different is when our back tire gets to the edge of the box, we grab our back brake, and that sets us up in a triple threat position. We can either drop down, we can jump up to something, or we can jump across to something by using a skill called the pedal kick. The pedal kick is a lot like pedal pressure, except pedal pressure is kind of this even motion where you're easing off the brakes and you're pushing the pedals, you're leaning your body weight back to lift the front wheel up. When we do a pedal kick, it's a lot faster, harder motion because that's spinning the back wheel really fast and that's helping us do the jump. It is the same where we're letting off the brake as we're easing onto the pedals. It's just a much faster movement. But the cool thing is, if you can already do that pedal pressure motion where you push on your front pedal and you lift your front wheel up, that's a huge unlock for you if you ever decide to get into trials, because most riders really struggle to learn that back and forth of the pedals and the brakes. Since you understand pedal pressure and we've talked about the pedal kick technique, I want to show you a few more examples of how the pedal kick powers the bike to do basically anything you want it to do. So if I want to jump straight up onto this box, I can use a pedal kick to do that. If I want to jump from one box to another, I can use a pedal kick to do that too. I think it's time to get serious with this bike now. We've done a little bit of a warm-up. We've shown you how both bikes do their own thing when it comes to attacking obstacles and using all the techniques that we've learned so far. But now it's time to take it to another level. So what I'm going to do is use the pedal pressure technique that we've been talking about this whole time, take it up a notch to the pedal kick, and we're gonna put a ton of power behind it. Enough power to get this bike to jump all the way up onto this 3-foot box here. Since this is technically a new bike, I need to do it 3 times in a row to make sure that I've definitely got this locked in. We've done some gap jumps on the bike already, but now I want to see just how far I can push it. So I have these 2 obstacles here. I've got one of my balance beams kind of secured back here, and I've got Scrappy here, and I'm just going to start spreading them apart to see how far I can actually jump between the 2. So right now we're going to start at just under a wheelbase, and we'll give it a little push and see how far we can actually jump. Wheelbase. This one's gonna be slightly farther than a wheelbase. That is a healthy gap. The thing about these gaps is that they get into your head too, so it's just as much a mental game as it is doing the technique. Woo, felt like I was floating. 6, 7 feet right on the dot. There's a reason why this bike right out of the box makes world champions. And if you can hop on it and do stuff like this, I get it.